Hey folks, Professor K here. So this week we're going to be really diving deep into Photoshop and learning a bunch of different tools that will help you not only repair photos, but also realize your dreams with photos, photo manipulation tools. And today we're going to focus on a number of different things, but in this video I want to focus on photo repair and photo manipulation. Basically, what happens if you get a photo that doesn't quite work for your needs? We're going to go through a few different tools today. The patch tool, the healing brush tool, the spot healing brush tool, and the basic dodge and burn tools as well. These are all tools that we know from darkroom photography, but can be really helpful and useful in putting together your designs as well. And I'll explain that along the way. Let's get started. All right. So here we have Photoshop open and I have my image open. And you might be like, Professor K, this is a pretty good looking image. There's not a lot to edit here. Well, in fact, you're actually seeing the finished version of some photo manipulation I've already done. Here, I've actually repaired this photo so that it looks a little bit cleaner, but still has the overall texture and grittiness of the original scene. You can see there are still spots here. There are still some little places that could probably use some repair. But amazingly enough, this isn't what the photo originally looked like. In fact, I've done a lot of work here. You can see from all these states in my history palette that I have. And what this originally used to look like was this. Can you believe that? Isn't that incredible? We went from this to this, all in Photoshop. And you might need to do this occasionally when you're either taking photos or when you're sourcing a photo from stock photography or from a photo shoot where maybe things just need to be cleaned up a little bit just to more clearly communicate. Now you can use these same tools to do things like remove certain subjects. You can use it to change the meaning of a photo through photo manipulation techniques. And that is not a good thing to do with these tools. So I want to really just kind of put that out there right now that these tools can be used for harmful purposes. That's not what we want to use them for. Use these tools in order to really clarify your content, not change your content. So how do we get all the way over here? Well, let's take a look at some of the different tools we can use and techniques to clean up the spots in this photo as well as the reflections in the background of the sky. These are coming from shooting inside a car. So what you're seeing is the light reflected off of the windshield. Now this photo is also freely available on Unsplash. So if you'd like, you can follow along with this tutorial and try cleaning up this photo yourself. Let's get started. Taking a look at my history palette here, I see a lot of the spot healing brush tool. The spot healing brush tool allows you to click on a spot and have it heal. It's just like it sounds like, right? This tool is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 down. And if you don't see it, you can just click and hold. It should be the first one over. It'll be like a little like selection looking icon with a band-aid on it. Make sure that's selected. And remember that you can use the left bracket and right bracket on your keyboard to increase and decrease the brush size. The spot healing brush tool allows you to spot heal something on the photo, replace it based on the area around it using a brush. So let's just zoom in here and pick a spot to demonstrate this on. I'm going to decrease my brush to about 80, and I'm just going to click on this spot right here. And bam, it's gone. Amazing, right? In fact, you can keep doing this all throughout this photo here and get a pretty good result. As long as you are covering the entire mark. No, let's try covering only half this mark here and see what happens. See how that wasn't really effective? All it did was it blurred out the second half a little bit. That's because we didn't have the entire mark covered with our brush. Now, if we go and we hover the cursor over the entire mark and click one more time, now it disappears. So that's an important thing about the spot healing brush tool as you're going through, is just to make sure that all of these marks are completely covered. What we're going to do is we're going to create a nice clean space in the middle in order to demonstrate a different tool that will actually help us go a little bit faster through the rest of this. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean up some of these spots down here. And for now, I'm going to focus just on the sky. I'm not going to worry about the sand just yet. That's what the spot healing brush tool is. Next, let's take a look at some ways that we can more quickly fix up the sky, especially some of these reflections. Because if you'll notice, these reflections are really large. If we tried to use the spot healing brush tool here, and we even made the spot healing brush tool really big, see how it doesn't really fix everything? The area is just too large. It's not really the best tool for fixing a large area. If you want to fix a large area of the photo, a better tool to use is what's called the patch tool. The patch tool is going to be the third one underneath the tool in your toolbox here. So here underneath spot healing brush tool, hold your mouse down, 3 down, and that's the patch tool. With the patch tool, what you're going to do is select an area to be your source, the area that you want to heal. And then what you're going to do is you're going to drag that area onto a place that looks in texture about like what you want. And your goal with this is to, much like the spot healing brush tool, you want to try and grab the entire affected area and then choose what source to have it replaced with. So this is a little easier demonstrated than anything. I'm going to start small. Let's try replacing this little pen mark here by dragging a selection around it. Now we can see it is selected using our patch tool. And now when we hover over this selection, see how the patch tool turns into like a little patch tool plus an arrow cursor? You're going to click and drag that anywhere that has the same texture. This is important. It doesn't have to be the same color or the same shade. You want the same texture. I'm going to do that right now. Drop it here in that clear sky. Command D to deselect. And now look, it's totally seamless. That piece is gone. Now, the texture part is important. Let's take a look and back up just a couple. I'm going to use my history palette to do this because I don't want to do Control-Z a billion times. Let's try and see what would happen if we took this patch tool and dragged it over to a place that had a significantly different texture, such as this camel. Look at that! There's a camel in the sky. The patch tool works significantly differently from the other healing tools in Photoshop. It tries to match the texture of your source material back to the color of what you selected. So whatever your source is for the healing area is going to affect the texture of the area that's being healed. So now that we know the basics of how the patch tool works, and again demonstrating that just with that pen tool mark there, let's go ahead and try a larger area. This is what the patch tool is really good at. I'm going to try selecting this area up here, and I just want this whole entire corner. And I want all of these marks gone at once. The patch tool is great for sky and like repairing things like this, big swatches of stuff. I want this kind of same noisy texture up there. Doesn't have to be the same color, just the same texture. I'm going to drag and drop there, and bam, all of those marks are gone at once. Let's continue with this, and I'm just going to demonstrate quickly how this can, just within a matter of minutes, take away these reflections in the window. So here we've got that. There's just a bit of reflection there I can see, so I'm going to take that out. And again, just going in relatively small parts, try and have your selection end on a very consistent tone. Don't end in the middle of a mark or something, because again, that will cause you some problems in fixing things up. And as you get a larger selection and larger areas to work with, you can use larger areas with the patch tool to make things look more natural. So for example, this area here is pretty big. I'm going to break my own rule and see what happens here. See if Photoshop's gotten any better with this, and try and move this whole area over here. Okay, so here, this is why I say don't select in the middle of an extra bright area. It was a little hard to avoid in this case, but here you can see that what's happened is the patch tool has tried to blend it together. So in the background, Photoshop is trying to blend these areas together to repair them for you. So we're going to just continue doing this, just little by little, piece by piece, until the sky looks relatively smooth. And we don't have to get it perfect. One thing that I would plan to do after this is I might plan to use this for an advertisement. So I might be planning to have some text over the top of this sky. in which case it's not going to matter if I have this entirely perfect. It's okay if some of these areas are a little better fixed than others. But on the whole, you can see that just with multiple uses of this tool, I can really clean this up quickly. And it just really helps make the photo a lot clearer. Now you might want to try the same thing with the sand down here in this photo as well. However, the sand will be a little bit trickier because, again, you're going to need a good source to pull from. So somewhere in here, you're going to have to really clean this up, some part of the sand, and then start dragging some of these more affected areas over to that source. So if we were to try and do the sand here and get that looking good, let's just remove this last reflection over here before we do that. So you can see it's not too hard to do. Let's go back down in the sand and notice that we have a lot of little spots here. Well, this would be another great time to go back to that spot healing brush tool and just remove some of those real quick. So we're just going to quickly get this feeling a little bit more cohesive. And oftentimes when you're doing photo manipulation or photo repair, you don't actually want to do too much of this kind of work. You just want to remove the most distracting elements. And the reason why is because if you've noticed already, in comparison with the rest of the sand, this has almost gotten a little too perfect over here. This is almost like a little too fixed up. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue on with this and see if we can get a good, realistic looking interpretation here. Okay, this feels a little bit more even as I'm like evening this out, the overall texture with what's going on over here. You never want to have one part of the photo looking more edited than other parts of the photo. So watch for things like uneven gradients. Keep your eyes out for like stuff like this, little bits of blurring. That's how you can detect photo manipulation that's been done poorly, or photo restoration that's been done poorly. And whenever you see someone say, oh, that's been photoshopped, that's usually what that's about. Somebody will be seeing those types of differences. So now we're going to try the patch tool here, and we're just going to try moving this over and see how it does. That's actually not too bad. One thing that you'll notice is that as we use the patch tool and smooth this out more and more, we're starting to lose some of what kind of made the picture more naturally interesting. So I'm going to deliberately over edit it a little bit so that you can see what that effect looks like in comparison with the final. Just over repair it a little bit. Notice that this is getting really smooth over here, and then this has a lot more natural texture. So one thing that can happen when you do work like this, if you don't do it well, that's actually pretty good. And that was a good use of the patch tool, getting that texture. Let's show that one more time. So there's the patch selection, deselect. Okay, so that's where the patch tool originally was. We wanted to keep that texture. We dragged it over and we replaced it with another texture further down. So keeping that same sort of texture, that was pretty effective there. You may find that there are areas that don't work as well with the patch tool just because they're kind of, I don't know, just more complicated, like that, for example. Or let's say that we wanted to take out this leading person over here and we wanted to clean up this area towards the end. One thing that we can use to get a little bit more control over where the photo is sourcing repairs from, but that isn't as large a tool as the patch tool, is called the healing brush tool. So that's going to be the second one down underneath your tools. Here with the healing brush tool, what you'll do is you'll hold Option in order to select a source. And now you can see wherever I put my brush, that source will go. And it will try and stamp that texture in. So if I were to draw that out here, let's see that in action one more time. Let's say that I chose my source by holding Option down. And again, this is a brush type tool, so you can use your left and right brackets to select different sources. Let's say that I want my source to be these camels. So I'm going to Option, click, and now my source is those camels. Click one more time up in the sky, and I've got a print of camels up there. What this means is that you can use, much like the patch tool, but with a little bit more control, areas from other parts of the photo that have, this works especially well with anything with a line in it that you have to follow, that have a relatively clear area and you just kind of need to repair like this. So see how that is starting to, and oops, what's happening here? Well, we've accidentally grabbed a little bit of the camel from over here. So that's one thing you have to watch out for with the healing brush tool, is that, and you'll notice I'm holding space to pan around. That's another Photoshop keyboard trick I use. One thing that is really important is to remember that anytime you set down a selection, that same selection is going to be used throughout the rest of the photo. And you can see with the little plus cursor there where it's selecting from. So you can see exactly where I'm getting, whoops, too far, this copy of, let me just go back to my selection tool here. See these two dots? I've got an exact copy over here now. So it's going to pick up exactly those things depending on where your source is. I'm just going to do a little spot healing here. And again, this isn't perfect. I'm really just doing this for the purpose of demonstrating. I'm not going to be able to get a totally beautifully clean photo because as it turns out, this type of photo cleanup work actually takes quite a bit of effort. And there are people who are paid pretty good money to do this type of restoration, especially with older photos, photos that might be hard to recreate, old family photos, heirlooms, things like that. There's actually services that will put those photos back together just like this, using these same techniques, so that you can always see them again. So let's just, oh, oops. So if you see this, if you did just like me and option clicked with the spot healing brush tool, Photoshop will say it automatically samples pixels to correct a spot. So in this case, because I'm on the spot healing brush tool, I don't actually need to do that. I just kind of get in the habit of setting the source using that option key. As I'm doing this, it becomes very, very natural to do. And as you can see here, look, it just keeps putting that spot back, huh? Overall, this is working pretty well. I'm able to take away the most distracting pieces using this tool. So spot healing is really probably going to be one of your most used tools in terms of just getting rid of little spots like this. It's really, really great for that. It's also, I'm not demonstrating it here because I'm not particularly fond of this use for it, but one common use of the spot healing tool is to remove blemishes on someone's face, right? Or freckles. So that's another alternate use of this tool. Again, I would really prefer that people be represented in an accurate and honest way. And this is a tool that can be used in a different way than that to promote maybe beauty standards that aren't ideal, right? So you can use these tools in any way you want. There's really no limit to what you can do with them. And that's the beautiful and kind of scary thing about them. So going underneath, a couple that we haven't talked about here because we're not editing a face in this photo are the red eye tool. This is a lot like the spot healing brush tool. When you click on an eye and there's red eye, it will remove it. This isn't as much a problem with more modern cameras, but if you ever see someone with red eye, this will get rid of it. And then the content aware move tool should be able to move things around on the canvas. So let's just drag this over here, drop, hit return or enter. And now you can see, so this has done some kind of amazing stuff, right? Let's watch that one more time. We've selected the camels and let's just put them right up here. This whole camel, we'll move it up here, hit return, and Photoshop processes it and tries to automatically move it for you. Now it's doing this using its best guess on how to recreate what was happening in the background. But what you might be seeing here is that there are little artifacts, the lines aren't made up properly. It's really easy, but it's not very effective. And this is what I've found with some of Photoshop's content aware tools, is that they're really good with the right purpose in mind, but with a lot of more detailed or complicated photos, you have just, it doesn't work quite as effectively. So just to remind you where we started from and where we ended up from, here was our original photo with lots of window reflections, lots of little distracting elements and dust and bits. And at the end, we were able to clean those up using a number of photo restoration tools. To go over a few others that might be helpful to you in this type of work, we also have the dodge and burn tool, as well as the sponge tool. These three tools are great for spot changing the exposure of your photo. And they come from a time when in darkroom photography, we used to lighten or darken things just in little pieces, or just like a little spot. So here with the dodge tool, let's say that we wanted to make these camels a little brighter. You can do that just by clicking. Similarly, if we wanted to switch and go to the burn tool, and again, these are both brushes, so you can do that. If we wanted to equalize this a little bit, you could darken it like that. But notice here that when you really zoom out and look at this as a whole, you're starting to see some differences in the area around the camel. There are really better ways to do this, and I'll show you those ways in the next couple videos. The sponge tool desaturates or saturates. So you can change the mode up here, but for example, if you wanted to desaturate a spot just like that, you would be able to. Again, there are better ways of doing this, but it is worth noting that that's what those three tools do, and you do have access to them if you want. So I hope that helps you with understanding how to change and clean up photos. In our next video, we'll talk about some of those different ways that you can change the way that a photo looks or interacts with other parts of a photo so that you can get into more complicated photo editing and combining photos together. I'll see you in just a moment.